Usually when we talk about a physical injury, there's a very clear cause and effect. Like you touch a hot stove and your hand pulls back immediately.
Right. It's immediate. It's clean.
hmm
And it functionally keeps you alive.
Exactly. It's a biological survival mechanism. But then, you step into the world of our minds, our emotional pain, our anxieties about tomorrow, the deep regrets we have about yesterday.
Yeah, that's where it gets messy.
So messy. And suddenly, that clear cause and effect gets completely tangled up. I mean, we find ourselves suffering intensely over things that aren't even happening right now.
We essentially carry that hot stove around with us everywhere we go.
We really do. And welcome to a brand new deep dive, by the way. I'm so glad you're joining us today because today we are immersing ourselves in a single source that promises to extinguish that stove entirely.
Extinguish it completely.
Yeah, we're looking at Pessin Inthrong's 10 ideas on the present moment. And this isn't about like productivity hacks or clearing your inbox. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the profound transformative power of mindfulness.
And Inthrong bypasses standard mindfulness entirely here. He isn't interested in just centering you for a corporate meeting.
Right.
He's interested in dismantling the you altogether. It's a radical deconstruction.
So we're going for a really contemplative, grounding vibe today. I want you, the listener, to just mentally step back, take a breath, and get ready for a pretty major paradigm shift in how you perceive reality.
Because it argues that anchoring in the pure now literally dissolves fear, it dismantles the ego, and completely rewires our relationship with the universe.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because he doesn't start with something gentle or abstract. He goes right for the most immediate, visceral barrier that keeps us out of the present moment.
Which is pain.
Pain and heaviness, yeah. And my first reaction when reading this was, how on earth are we supposed to stay anchored in the present when the present objectively hurts?
I mean, it's the ultimate stress test for mindfulness, isn't it? It's easy to be present when you're watching a beautiful sunset. But what about when you're heartbroken or in physical agony? What's fascinating here is how striking his approach is.
He has this really wild concept about it.
He does. He argues that in the pure present moment, there is actually no pain. He describes pain as a picture projected onto a whiteboard.
Which honestly sounds incredibly dismissive until you dig into the mechanics of what he's actually saying.
Right, so let's look at the cognitive process of how our minds process sensation versus how they process suffering. Usually we think we are the picture. We merge entirely with the pain.
We identify with it completely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he suggests that by stepping into the absolute present, we separate ourselves from that board. We become, well, gentle observers of the image.
Just watching it.
Yeah. The raw sensation might be happening. The nociceptors in your nervous system are firing. But that data doesn't route through the brain's default mode network to become some catastrophic narrative. It's a separation of raw sensation from emotional narrative.
So if we look at a modern application, say you're listening to this on your commute and you're thinking, sure, this sounds great in theory, but my boss is going to yell at me in an hour over a missed deadline. I can't just be a gentle observer.
Right. But if your boss is yelling at you, the raw sensory data is literally just sound waves hitting your eardrum.
That's a wild way to think about it.
It is. It's just a physiological event happening in a room. The suffering, the actual pain of that moment is the story your prefrontal cortex immediately spins about that event.
Like, I'm going to get fired. I'm a failure. Everyone hates me.
Precisely. When you strip away that story, you're left with just the raw data of the moment.
I want to push back on that a little bit, though, because, is this just dissociation?
How do you mean?
Well, it sounds a bit like sitting in a movie theater watching a scary movie. You see the monster on the screen, the whiteboard, but you know you're safe in your seat.
Okay, yeah.
You're observing the horror, but you're not participating in it. So are we just, like, numbing out to survive?
I'd actually argue it's the exact opposite of dissociation.
Really?
Yeah. Dissociation is checking out. It's an anesthetic. What Inthrong is describing is hyperpresence. To use your movie theater analogy, when you're in the theater, if you forget you're watching a screen and genuinely believe the monster is attacking you,
your heart rate spikes.
Your cortisol floods your system, you panic, you suffer. But when you remember you're sitting in the seat, you are more aware of reality, not less.
Oh, I see. You see the screen for what it actually is.
Right. Just light projected on a wall. You weren't numbing out. You are deeply, acutely present in the actual reality of the theater.
That makes so much sense. You see the screen for what it is, and if we drop that heavy, heavy narrative, like the monster attacking us, Life suddenly becomes incredibly light.
That's the seventh point, yeah.
Because he points out that when we achieve this, nothing is a burden anymore. Even the concept of death feels gentle. He says the darkness actually illuminates things rather than obscuring them.
Because the terror of death is almost entirely the story of
It's
death.
the anticipation of it.
Exactly. It's the ego mourning its own future absence. But when you are just in the pure now, there's no future to mourn.
And that lightness leads to this profound, childlike wonder. I love this part. He uses the image of seeing a butterfly or looking at the sun as if for the absolute first time.
Because you aren't weighed down by your past experiences.
Right. The mundane turns into something surprisingly new. It's like the world is constantly premiering, and we usually just sleep through the opening credits because we assume we've already seen the movie.
I love that. That wonder comes from disabling our mental shortcuts. Usually you look at a butterfly and your brain says, oh, I've seen 1,000 of those. File it under insect.
You don't actually see it.
You don't. But without the heavy narrative of the past, you are experiencing this specific butterfly in this specific millisecond.
But okay, if we drop the narrative of our pain and we drop our mental shortcuts, we also kind of accidentally drop the narrative of who we are.
We do.
The ego requires a past to exist. So what does this all mean for our ego? What happens to our identity when that past just evaporates?
It dissolves. And this is perhaps his most liberating concept. The third idea. In the present moment, we aren't trying to be anyone.
Because there's no past you to live up to.
Right. Think about the sheer caloric and emotional energy you spend every single day just constructing and defending an identity.
Trying to be the smart employee, the perfect parent, the successful entrepreneur.
Or even the misunderstood victim. It's exhausting.
We are constantly auditioning for our own lives, curating our persona for an audience that is, honestly, mostly just in our own heads.
But in the pure present, that exhausting effort just vanishes. We stop chasing ourselves. We stop hurting ourselves with our own rigid expectations.
We just exist.
We finally get to live in peace with who we already are, simply because who we are right now is the only thing that actually exists.
The ideal you is just a ghost of the future.
And the past you is a ghost of memory.
Which sounds incredibly peaceful, but honestly, it's also kind of terrifying. Like, if I let go of my plans, my identity, my narrative, I'm just floating in complete uncertainty.
Which brings up his fourth point. The metaphor of the boat.
Yes, the boat on turbulent waves. He says life is like being on this boat in the middle of a storm. And usually we try to fight the waves or we panic because the boat is rocking so much.
We think uncertainty is this external enemy that's trying to sink us.
Exactly. And standard wellness advice will tell you to just, accept the storm. Just practice deep breathing while the boat rocks.
But Inthrong takes it a step further. If we connect this to the bigger picture, he says we don't just accept the uncertainty. We realize we are the uncertainty.
See, I struggle with this idea of embracing the boat's uncertainty to that extreme. Like, if I just accept the storm, realize I am the uncertainty, and let the boat rock, aren't I abandoning my responsibility to steer the boat?
That's a fair question.
How does this philosophy distinguish between radical presence and just, outright apathy?
That is the trap a lot of people fall into when they encounter this kind of philosophy. They equate non-resistance with passivity. But consider what happens when you fight the storm mentally. You're panicked, your cognitive resources are completely drained by fear, and you make terrible decisions at the helm.
You're freaking out instead of steering.
Exactly. When Inthrong says uncertainty becomes our home, he's talking about finding your sea legs. If you are a sailor born on the sea, the rocking of the boat isn't an emergency.
It's just the floor moving.
Yes. The waves might be massive and crashing against the hull, but your feet walk smoothly and calmly on the deck. You still steer the boat, but you do it from a place of clarity and harmony with the water.
Rather than a place of terrified resistance, uncertainty is our natural habitat that completely flips the script.
It really does.
Instead of trying to build a brick house on solid ground, which is an illusion anyway, you just learn to walk with the rhythm of the ocean.
And when you adapt to that rhythm, the artificial boundary between you inside the boat and the storm outside the boat begins to blur completely.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because once that boundary blurs, we move from the individual ego to the whole macrocosm.
The universe.
Yeah. And he introduces an idea here, his fifth point, that really caught me off guard. It's deliberately jarring. He says that in the present, everything is beautiful, even a dead dog.
It's a provocative image. designed to shock your system.
It definitely works. But how does mindfulness make a rotting animal beautiful? I mean, logically, biologically, that feels totally counterintuitive. We are evolutionarily wired to be repulsed by decay.
We are. When you see decay, your amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, fires off a huge signal of disgust. It's a biological imperative to keep you away from disease.
It immediately applies a label. Dangerous, bad, ugly.
Right. But absolute mindfulness bypasses that initial emotional tag. When you drop into pure presence, you process the raw visual data without the survival mechanism screaming at you.
Okay.
So when you strip away the human label of disgusting, what are you actually looking at?
I guess you're just looking at matter, just stuff happening.
You're looking at the fundamental mechanics of the universe. You, a blooming flower, and the dead dog are made of the exact same universal fabric.
Yeah. It's all just carbon and nitrogen and energy shifting form.
Exactly. In the true present, labels of good or bad just drop away. We retain our individuality,
Yeah.
yet simultaneously become everything else.
Bringing this back to you, the listener, you might not be staring at a literal dead dog on your way to work, but you might be staring at a dead dog of a project that just failed or an expectation that died.
Right, and we view those things as a tragic defeat.
Our brain immediately tags them with disgust or failure or ugliness, but without that human preference, a failed project is just energy that has shifted form.
It is reality reorganizing itself. It's a radical acceptance of reality without applying our narrow human desires to it.
So the beauty he's talking about isn't like aesthetic beauty. It's not, oh, what a pretty dead dog.
No, not at all.
It's the profound, awe-inspiring beauty of existence itself. The fact that anything exists and transforms at all.
And he weaves this beautifully into the idea that everything merges. He points out that the sound of our heartbeat and the rhythm of our breath become completely indistinguishable from the stillness of the universe.
The poetic imagery in the text here is just incredible. He says, we can know the entire ocean through the blood in our veins.
Yes.
And we can understand every mountain on Earth just by holding a single small pebble. It's the ultimate macrocosm inside the microcosm.
Because the physics that govern the pebble govern the mountain. The salinity and flow of your blood mimic the ancient oceans we evolved from.
That's mind-blowing.
Life is recognized as time, matter, feeling, and movement, all acting as one unified force.
He also describes the surreal feeling of traveling rapidly through a moving world, yet remaining entirely motionless in the silence of the present.
Like being on a train.
Yeah, it reminds me of sitting on a bullet train. Outside the window, the world is just this blur of speed and chaos and changing landscapes. But inside the cabin, you are just sitting perfectly still, drinking a cup of tea.
The universe is the bullet train. It's expanding, weather patterns are raging, our daily lives are chaotic. But the pure present moment is that stillness inside the cabin.
And the realization he's pushing us toward is that you are both the speeding train and the motionless passenger.
Exactly.
Which brings us to a really difficult pill to swallow, especially for anyone who loves learning or analyzing things. Where does human intelligence fit into all this?
The eighth idea. The fading of cleverness.
Because we are a species utterly obsessed with logic and figuring things out. We want to measure the waves. We want to categorize the dead dog.
We're biologically addicted to it. Evolutionary psychology tells us that pattern recognition and intellectual categorization kept us at the top of the food chain.
Right.
But this text argues that in the true present, intellectual understanding and the desperate desire to be clever simply melt away. They become useless tools.
It's highly ironic because here we are doing a deep dive, analyzing the text, trying to be incredibly clever about it.
We are literally using our intellects to discuss why the intellect fails.
We really are.
But what he means is that your standard factual ignorance might still exist. You might not know how a combustion engine works.
Or the capital of Peru.
Right. But the desperate need for answers, the grasping for intellectual wisdom to somehow save you becomes totally irrelevant.
You stop trying to figure life out from the outside.
And you realize that you are the very thing that is happening.
You don't need to read a textbook about water dynamics when you realize you are the rain.
Exactly. Think about language for a second. Language functions exclusively by dividing reality.
So.
The moment I say the word tree, I have artificially separated the tree from the soil it grows in, the air it breathes, the sunlight it absorbs.
Oh, I see.
Words carve up a seamlessly unified universe into bite-sized, separate pieces so our monkey brains can process them.
That perfectly explains his final point, the 10th idea. He says words, communication, and explanations become entirely mute, meaning useless. And to illustrate this, he uses these deliberate, mind-bending paradoxes. He talks about feeling the heat of the rain and the cold of the fire.
This raises an important question. How can you grasp something that language cannot touch?
Because logically, cold fire doesn't make any sense.
He's intentionally breaking our linguistic rules to force a different kind of processing. If you try to understand cold fire intellectually, your brain hits a wall.
He's short-circuiting the analytical brain.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Because if you strip away the dictionary definition of fire and just experience the raw sensory input of a moment without labeling it with language, you enter a completely different reality.
Wow.
He's explaining that the core of true insight isn't knowledge. It's not a trivia fact you memorize. It's a physiological and spiritual feeling of awakening.
Waking up from the illusion of our own labels, from our confusion.
When you truly wake up, you aren't thinking about hearing. You actually hear every sound. You actually smell the wind and the dirt.
You feel the temperature of the world without immediately categorizing it as too hot or too cold. And the tragic, or maybe the beautiful part about this profound feeling of awakening is that you cannot keep it.
No, you can't.
He is very explicit about that. You cannot possess this feeling. You can't put the present moment in a jar, screw the lid on tight, and put it on a shelf to save it.
You can only open the door to your heart. That's his instruction. You leave the door open, let the moment come in, let it go.
Experience it fully without resistance, and then let it walk right back out.
Just let it flow.
Which really synthesizes the entire goal described in this text.
Mm.
The goal is to become a non-judgmental observer of the universe's delightful flow.
Beautifully put.
Thank you. To stand on that boat of uncertainty and let the waves crash, knowing you are the water. To separate yourself from the whiteboard of your pain and just watch the projection without suffering.
And to finally let go of the exhausting, never-ending need to be clever.
That is how you actually experience the profound beauty of the present.
It is a radically different way to exist in the modern world. And if I can leave you with one final thought to mull over today, building on this idea of the open door,
Please do.
we've established that the present moment cannot be captured.
Yeah.
It cannot be possessed by your ego. We are merely this incredible temporary flow of time and matter.
Right.
So consider this. What if the goal of mindfulness isn't for you to try and hold on to the present moment? What if the goal is to finally realize that the present moment is the only thing holding you?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We spend so much energy grasping at it, terrified of falling, when it's the very thing supporting our entire weight.
Just like that movie theater feat from the beginning.
Exactly. You don't have to white-knuckle the armrests. The seat is holding you while the movie plays out.
All you have to do is sit back and watch.
I think that is the perfect place to leave it. Thank you so much for joining us on this highly contemplative deep dive today. We really hope you can take a piece of this calm awareness, this non-judgmental observation into the rest of your day. See the butterfly, feel the rain, and just let it flow. Until next time.